Hey everyone, and welcome to our Dubai Fitness Championship coverage. I'm your host, Lauren Kalil. Today we have our sports analyst, Joey Adduci, and MC Bella Martin here to reveal their men's podium picks. Guys, this is exciting. Bella, we're actually going to be there.
I'm so excited. I am counting down the days. I got my passport ready. We're doing this.
This is your first time covering it or being there live in person?
First time being there, first time at the event, first time in Dubai. So I think it'll be a huge just week of firsts for all of us that are getting out there.
Joey, what about you? Unfortunately, you have to be from home.
Yeah, all good. I am excited to see the release of the programming and see how things pan out. I know you guys will be getting us all the updates, so very excited to follow it.
I know. And it's so much fun because this is going to be, I think this is the 10th anniversary of this event. So we can only imagine that they're going to go out with a bang once we hear the programming and everything that's in store. But let's take a look at who you guys put on the podium. And what I love about this is they're actually more different than I expected. So we'll have to see why you guys ultimately chose who you did. For this one, we're going to have ladies first. Bella, here is your podium. And we'll get to the dark horse later, but tell us how you ultimately came up with your 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, so I love this because this is all about kind of recent performance, but I also think it's a little bit more of an emotional choice for all of my picks. So Lazar, he's first. I think, he's a solid athlete. He's consistently at kind of the middle of the pack when it comes to the elites. So being one of the fittest guys at the comp, I think that sets him up to be very successful, especially when not all of these guys have actually made it to the games or has been as successful as he has. He was eighth at the games this year. He also was just recently at the Rogue Invitational, and I think that event didn't go as well for him as he would have liked it to. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because he said before he doesn't just show up to comps, he shows up to compete and to win. So I think having that little bit of a chip on his shoulder, he's really ready to dial it in. Hopefully, you see him on top of that podium. And Brent, he just won LFIT, so he's kind of riding that high of being a winner. And if you've ever won anything, you know how good it feels to win and then go in with that confidence of a champion into the next thing. So I do think he's kind of someone to watch, definitely top two in my opinion. And then I also say Fabian, he is consistent. He won the qualifier. He's that athlete that hasn't made it there yet, but I think this is a really good chance for him to show us what he's made of. So my top three, I'm betting on Lazar, I'm betting on Brent, and I'm betting on Fabian. I'm telling you what.
Yeah, and I love to see it because I personally don't know a ton about Fabian, but the more that I've been like kind of watching him on Instagram, that's really where we get all of the data when we don't have
Yes.
all of these live person competitions. But I think that it's cool because competition is structured a little bit different than maybe the Rogue or even Wadapalooza, and certainly than the games. So I think it is an opportunity to see other athletes that might not be podium contenders as often, to see them rise to the top and maybe ultimately shine. So I like that you had him on your top 3.
Absolutely. I think he's kind of an underdog that I want to see win, and he's making a name for himself. So why not kind of bet on that guy?
Sure. I love it. Okay, Joey, let's go to your top men. You had similar but different, but you also had Yonakoski in there. Tell me about your top 3.
All right, so starting off with Brent, he won Dubai in 2019, and he is coming off that win at LFIT, like we just spoke about. The biggest thing is if you look at the typical programming you have at a competition like Dubai, it's a broad range of tests, and Brent is always the person that has an amazing gamesmanship and can really step things up when it's in person. He thrives with that gamesmanship and athleticism component. So I like him for the win. Yona is just so consistent. He's an 8 times games athlete. He's extremely well rounded. The reason I have Brent ahead of him is because Yona is probably the best swimmer in all of the CrossFit world, but Brent is also an amazing swimmer himself. So there won't be enough of a gap for Yona to middle down. So that's something that I think Brent still has that leg up. But overall, I think they both could be neck and neck the entire competition. And Lazar, again, he's in the mix. He took first in Madrid, but unfortunately had that ankle injury at Rogue. So we don't know how his ankle is recovered for this. You've seen long sand runs, running up the snow hill. Those are things that we're not sure how he'll be able to bounce back. So that's why I left him third. But his well-roundedness of fitness is, you can't touch it. It's unbelievable. So he still deserves to be in the mix.
Talking about Brent, we'll start with him because he was both high up on your leaderboards or on your podium picks, rather. Why do you think, and Joey, I'll start with you, why do you think that some of these off-season competitions he fares better in versus maybe the games format that we've seen some of his performance recently?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a programming element. We've seen a lot of changes. He's somebody who can show up and really analyze. He knows his body so well. So they call him the professor for a reason. So his ability to analyze the programming and pace and stay in his lane is something we see why Justin is so successful as well, is that a lot of times he's figuring out this is where I can steal points. This is where I might need to do damage control. And he's not as concerned with trying to beat everyone in every single workout. It's more about taking the points when he has the opportunity, and then he goes from there.
Yeah, and I mean, he's an OG. We love to see him there. It would be great to see him standing back on the podium. As for Lazar, I know that he had that ankle injury at Rogue, but he's somebody that I feel with the last couple of years, he is always part of that conversation. We saw him at Madrid at the top of the leaderboard. That gave him such momentum, and you could just see like the consistency throughout the weekend. Bella, again, you put him at the top of the leaderboard, at the top of your podium. What do you think it would take to get him back up there to almost repeat what he did in Madrid?
I think he's a dog. He's an absolute unit. And when he's healthy, he performs. We saw him in Madrid. He performed. He was healthy. Rogue, starting off with that trail run, I think we would have seen him on the podium or at the top of the pack at Rogue if he hadn't have dealt with that injury. And I don't think it's something that's been lingering, or I'm hoping it hasn't been lingering. We haven't really heard much about it on social or anything like that. So I think he is ready. And I think the performance that we're going to see in Dubai is what we were going to see at Rogue back in October. He's ready and he shows up, and he always shows up. I mean, he was 8th at the games. That's an absolute unit. Brent was 16th. He was 8th. So I think for me, that's exactly where I put him. I put him above Brent because, hey, the games is the games. And if you can beat people out there, you can beat people out in Dubai.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's take a look now. Joey, we'll start with you this time. At your dark horse, maybe people saw it down there, but Con Porter.
Yeah, for sure. So he is a completely different athlete after being with Reykjavik the last year. He's a 7 times games athlete. He's been there twice on team, but coming off that 4th place finish at the games and then recently finishing 2nd at the Down Under Championship with his crew, he's still fit. But it's really exciting because, like I was mentioning earlier, with the broad range of tests we typically see at Dubai, it's going to be really nice to see him express all of those improvements he's made in the last year. There were certain things that he tended to struggle with or avoid, and he's openly said it on podcasts. But working with Yami and the crew over at Reykjavik, he has hammered his weaknesses. He's really improved. He's trained like he's never has before. So it's really exciting to see, what he'll be able to pull off at Dubai.
What do you think it takes from an athlete like him? We interrupt this podcast for, oh no, I thought it was going to be his dog, but it is him fitnessing. But what do you think it's going to take from him to really show up as an individual athlete? Because the last couple of times we have seen him on these teams, which is such a different format than when you compete individual.
Yeah, for sure. I think for Khan, if you really think back to regional days, he has the ability, which is a very small group of people, to go into that dark place when he needs to and put his head down and take a win if he absolutely needs to. So we know he has that next gear when he needs to go to that place. It's really going to be about, him no longer finishing those fast and powerful workouts. He now has the endurance to back it up. He spent the last year, being partners with one of the strongest athletes in the men's competition. So he's going to be improving that strength as well. So seeing that well-roundedness, I think he's always had that competitiveness as an individual, but it was just filling those holes and having somebody help him, do that.
For sure. Okay, Bella, you had on your dark horse, Aniel Eki.
Yeah. Daniel, so he's one of these athletes. He's much like Fabian. He's brand new. Nobody knows who these guys are. And so for me, watching them in Madrid, watching them throw down for that week, I was thinking, oh my goodness, who are these guys? Who are they and what are they capable of? Daniel came in 2nd at Madrid. He came in 6th in the qualifier. So he's super strong. He's young. He's healthy. And he's very good at short sprints and kind of strength events. So I think for me, after watching him there compete, I'm excited to see what he does again in Dubai, mostly because he's so new. It's not often that we see these athletes make these big events and we're thinking, who are you? Where did you come from?
Mhm.
So when I was thinking of, okay, my dark horse, who do I want to see succeed at this event specifically? He was the first athlete that came to mind. I want to see what he's capable of, especially moving into Wadapalooza season, open
Mhm.
season, kind of everything that's coming after this. I think this is where he's going to start making a name for himself.
And I do think events like this are super cool that you mentioned that, Bella, that it gives these athletes an opportunity that we otherwise might not talk about, especially at something like Rogue, where you need the invitation besides like those 5 extra spots that we're able to make it through the online qualifier. Something like Dubai, where we're seeing some of those European athletes, Middle Eastern athletes that it's a little bit easier for them to get there to compete. I'm super excited to see some of the other names rise to the top of the podiums.
Absolutely. I
Let's
mean, it's exciting to just get new names and get new faces in the sport and see where they fare against some of these guys that have been here for a long time.
Mhm.
So I think that's why I'm excited for the buy for these guys.
And speaking of that, were there any other athletes that you guys were considering to put in your podium, but ultimately just didn't make it? Joey, I'll let you start.
Yeah, so I would first one that comes to mind is Giorgio Caravas. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Two-time games athlete. He finished 7th in Dubai at 2021. So it's one of those people that has the experience of that full test at the games multiple times. And Dubai is the most like in terms of the comprehensive test. It is the most like the games compared to some of these other off-season events. So it will be a major advantage going in with that experience.
Mm. Bella, who had you almost
It
put on?
was it was tough. I mean, I was also considering Khan. I was considering Yonakoski. All of these big names, you want to bet on them. But ultimately for me in this one, I was going with that athlete that I'm like, I want to see you succeed. I've never seen you do this before. So that's why I left those two OGs kind of off my list, but they're still up there. So if they're on that podium, I can't say I'm surprised.
Awesome. Well, Bella, Joey, thank you guys so much for revealing your men's podium picks. Then we will get into our women's podium picks. We'll see you next time.